Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. There are a few things I want to talk about today. The one is Republican denialism and the fact that they're trying to spin and justify this whole documents thing with Trump. You know, you have Jim Jordan, who completely ignores the fact that there's audio of Trump saying he hasn't declassified a certain document and that he can't now because he's not president. And then you have Kevin McCarthy, who's saying, well, Biden kept him in a garage. At least bathrooms have locks. It's been a hot minute since I've lived in a house with a garage, but they've all had locks on them and they're all locked. I mean, Biden shouldn't have kept them there. Yes, I get that, but he turned them all over when it was required of him. But Trump kept them in a bathroom. And yeah, bathrooms have locks if you're on the inside. So was someone in there the whole time? I don't think so. And then just the yeah buts, the whataboutisms, the what about Hillary Clinton? What about the Clinton sock scandal drawer thing, whatever that is. There are so many differences that they're just choosing to ignore because the admitting that Trump did something wrong makes them look bad. It makes them look like, I don't know, it just makes them look bad. And their continued support of him makes them look bad. So it's my opinion that they're supporting him, hoping that he'll get elected again in 24, and then he can pardon himself, and then pardon everyone else who might have been in cahoots. So that's just my opinion on that. And now I want to discuss a more controversial topic. Police reform. Do we need police? Absolutely. We absolutely need police. Do we need police the way they are right now? No. What needs to happen is there needs to be a national standard in police training. Because right now it varies state to state, how long they have to stay in police academy, how much training they have, what kind of training they have. And there has been a lot of former police officers that have come out and said that they literally are trained in defensive tactics. Very little about the law. And they're trained to think of themselves first. And the Supreme Court didn't help issues when they ruled that police are not there to protect us and serve us. Then what are they there for? They're there for property control, property management. The people that they have now in the police force tend to be there for the wrong reasons. And without adequate training and adequate vetting, we're getting bad police in there. We're getting the people that were in there because they were bullied when they were young, and so they want revenge. There's been ones that have said that they wanted to actually use their gun in a real-life setting. Others that actively want to pursue minority communities because of a hatred in them. And when I was young, I believed in the movies, you know, the police had this superior morality to everyone because they were not afraid to put their lives on the line to help others. But that has changed, and as I grew up and started seeing the world through, I guess, more jaded eyes, I've realized that they really aren't there to protect the entirety of the populace. They are there to protect a populace that they agree with, and they are there to protect property. But But when you have someone who is in the midst of a mental health crisis and their family calls the police needing help because they can't deal with them on their own, and when the police show up and they open fire within seconds or minutes of arrival, that's not there to help people. And I started watching a lot of auditing videos for a while. There was a lot I did not like because I didn't like their approach, the obnoxious, antagonistic. But the ones who stood back and just recorded the police, I could see their purpose and why we might need them. And it just showed me how little police actually know of the laws they're supposed to enforce. And so when they're arresting people for breaking no laws, for doing something that they just don't like, that's a problem. Especially when you have cops with giant egos who, the minute you say something they don't like, they turn violent. That's a problem. Now, the people who are there for the right reason, the good cops, they're being silenced because of the culture within police departments, because they're afraid for their own safety and their own family's safety if they speak out against these so-called bad apples. And so we definitely need police. We definitely need a decent-sized police budget. But I think we need to reallocate those funds and not put so much towards defensive training, but divide it into units. Say we've all seen Law and Order, how they have the CSI, they have SVU, all of that. Well, there should be a unit for mental health that not only is trained in the laws and defense, but is also trained in how to deal with mental health issues. So you have all of the defensive support of a police officer with more of the mental health professional going on. And I think that could solve a lot of problems. And when I said we need a national standard for training, I mean that we need to have, and I know cops can't learn every single law that they have to enforce. There's too many. But the laws that they commonly come in contact with, they need to know. The Constitution, they need to know. And right now, and I believe it was because of Obama, the police have become militarized. Because like I said, I think it was Obama who decided that outdated or unneeded military equipment should be given to police departments. And I think that's kind of set a precedent to militarize our police. And then you start seeing sketchy stuff, like the Cop City protesters, the people who organized the funds to help bail out the protesters who had been arrested were themselves arrested illegitimately because the cops didn't like them. And that's on tape. It's recorded. And the fact that cops continue to plant drugs on people, to arrest people for no reason outside of maybe they hurt their ego, with body cameras on, just shows that they have no accountability. And and that's what they need. They need accountability. They need to be held accountable for their abuse of power, for excessive force, for these blatant injustices that we all see. But the leadership in police departments justify it. And that was another thing that some retired or former police officers have said, is that they're trained to yell, "Stop resisting." because that plants that seed in witnesses' minds that, well, the cops were justified, the person was resisting, when they weren't. And sometimes they say, stop resisting. But people's arms don't always bend the way they're trying to bend them. They're not actively resisting. Their body just doesn't bend that way. And the lack of patience for people who are having a really bad day, say they just got assaulted. And so, of course, their emotions are heightened. They're on edge. They're angry. They're scared. And to see the videos of police actively verbally abusing these victims, and sometimes going to the point of physical abuse because they're frustrated, that's not what we need. There is a city somewhere in New York, I want to say Syracuse, but I could be wrong. I'll have to look into it, that instituted a new hiring practice. They made it to where every police officer has to pass a lie detector test before they can be hired. And there were officers who applied who passed everything. Flying colors. Looks like it was going to be a great hire until they got to that lie detector test. And they were asked questions like, why do you want to be a police officer? And when they were lying, obviously they could tell. And so they had to be honest. And once after that was instilled, and they stopped hiring the people that did not pass the lie detector test, their complaints of excessive force and abuse of power all but vanished, outside of the ones who were hired prior to this policy. I'm not saying it's going to work nationwide, but it's something we should think about. Stricter vetting. Because in my opinion, it seems that there's a lot of times that there's racists who go into policing just for the excuse to beat on minorities. And historically, the police have been right-leaning. They lean more conservative. You look back to the Civil Rights era, to the Black Lives Matter, to January 6th, to the Nazis, rolling flags down. There was a lot more questionable tactics used against people who were in the Black Lives Matter protests versus more of the right wing. The right-wing protests, like outside of Planned Parenthood clinics and stuff like that, police have a lot more patience. Don't resort to less than lethal tactics as easily. So there is a clear bias that needs to be rooted out and removed. It should be apolitical. If there's people legally and peacefully protesting, be there just in case. But don't actively try to antagonize protesters into violence on either side of the aisle. And they need to go back to protecting people and solving crime. I think I read somewhere that something like less than 1% of all crimes are solved by police. I could be wrong. I didn't research that, so don't quote me on that. But there's a small percentage of crimes that are actually solved by police. I've actually seen police officers on video, when someone comes to report a crime, say, well, there's nothing they can do about it because they didn't see it happen. Well, what good are you then? You're not going to be everywhere there's a crime, and you're not going to be able to witness every single crime. What you do is you investigate. You take statements, and you try to figure out if there was one, and then you go from there. So yes, we need police. We need well-trained police, well-vetted police, and police that are held accountable when they violate their oath of office, when they violate a person's civil rights, when they violate the Constitution. So yes, we need police, but we need better policing. And that's all I have to say on that. Again, what I'll say after every video, vote. No matter how big, how small, how insignificant the election seems, your vote does matter. And read. Read everything you can get your hands on. Whether it's science fiction, indictments, bills, legislation, autobiographies, whatever it is, read. Because the right doesn't want you educated. Jesse Watters even said that the more educated you are, the more you lean Democratic. So read and vote. And like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.